already have our guests in our midst. Wow. Good evening, Bolu. Good evening, Dorcas. Good evening, Matthew. Good evening to Minunu. It's a beautiful day, and I'm glad even to be here. I'm glad to have you here today. Webinar for ERA Energy Reboot Africa. Hope we are all doing good. Hope our day went well so far. Happy Sunday. Okay, so without wasting much of our time, I don't know if we can wait some few seconds to see if more people will join us. Maybe about a minute or so.
All right. All right, Christiana, I think I can just go on while we wait for other people to join us. I don't know, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
We are very grateful to have you in our midst, sir, and we are so grateful. I want to appreciate Mr. Matthew for making it on time, and every other person, Brother Bolu, Sister Christiana has done justice to that. So, yeah, it's very important that we begin to talk about these things, climate change and energy. It's a very profound fact that one of the sector that most climate change is the energy sector. From some statistics, that the energy sector contribute as a very large percentage effect on the climate change, and it's a very good way to start to understand the nexus between the energy, starting from the production, the use, and everything, and how it affects the climate. And of course, there's a need for urgent action so as to mitigate this impact and safeguard the planet for future generations. And when we come to Africa, we discover that African continents and even Nigeria and some other countries are not we are not yet doing enough in advocating, talking about this thing and taking action, And this is a problem that is cross-boundary. It goes beyond the countries, it goes beyond the continent. It affects the global problem. When a part of the world is not taking responsibility, that part of the world will not just suffer alone for their inaction. Every other person also suffer for the same. So that's why every hands must be on deck. Everybody must be aware about what is going on and learn how to personally take action. So I think that will serve as my opening remark. And over to Christiana.
All right, thank you, sir, for that very short opening remark. So we'll be introducing you to our speaker without wasting much of our time. I'll be telling you a little bit about our speaker tonight. His name is Mr. And he is a dynamic force in clean energy. And I mean, that is why we have him here with us to share his wealth of knowledge with us. And he has several years of experience as a policy advisor and project manager in sustainable energy across Africa and globally. He is armed with a bachelor in physics from the University of Ilorin and a master's degree in renewable energy economics from the University of Ibadan. He served as a policy fellow and a hydrogen fuel researcher at Agora Energy when there. Ayodeji is a PhD researcher at Dumpling City University and is the founder of Energy Gist, an energy literacy company where he continues superheading innovative initiatives. His involvement also extends to fostering the hydrogen research program at the Africa Energy Council and providing expertise for Africa renewable energy projects. Additionally, he contributes to global environmental sustainability efforts as a fellow of the UNEP, which is United States Environment Program, GEO 7 project. In addition to his professional accomplishments, Ayodeji is a passionate advocate for youth development, climate change education, and environmental sustainability. His unwavering commitment to promoting sustainable practices continue to inspire, leaving a significant impact in the pursuit of a greener future. So with so much excitement, I would love to welcome Mr. Ayodeji Stephen, even as he gives us from his wealth of knowledge for us this evening on energy and climate. Thank you, Mr. Ayodeji.
All right, thank you so much, Christina. I'm very glad to be amongst you. First off, I want to say thank you for inviting me. One of the things I say whenever I have the opportunity or privilege of speaking on anyone's platform is that to speak to a group of anybody is actually a privilege, because at the end of the day, it's just sharing some of the things I've been privileged to experience, some of the understanding that I have come across in my years of experience, years of working in the sector. And thank you also for deeming me fit to be the one to share with you. I mean, there are probably 1,000 experts that could possibly be here right now, but you have decided to invite me. So thank you so much. All right, so my name is Ayodeji, not Mr. Ayodeji. I understand that there is a lot of sa in the room. Well, my name is Ayodeji. You can simply just call me Ayodeji. I mean, if you see me on the street, you can just say Ayodeji. I think it's simply Ayodeji. So I prepared some slide. If the host could enable me to share my screen, that's fine.
Yes, I think you can go on to share your screens.
So it's still saying that participant sharing has been disabled.
Check it now, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, you are moving from one place to another. It is expected that it will take time for you to leave where you are, take time between where you are to get into where you want to be. And that needs proper planning when it comes to energy transition. But when we talk about energy transition, it has a huge impact on climate change, right? And as young persons, we have a huge role. Some of our parents do not even bother about, climate change. We have to be the ones to gradually tell them. And working on climate change could be as simple as being efficient in your energy use. Sometimes you are not using a bulb, turn it off. Sometimes you are charging your phone, right? And your phone is already full. Remove the charger. Do you know why that is important? And I'm going to tell you. Because for every kilowatt of electricity that you use, you are placing a demand on the grid to be able to supply you that kilowatt of electricity, which means you're placing a demand from the generation plants, which means that for them to generate that 1 kilowatt of electricity that you are using, they have to use probably more gas, which means more emissions released into the atmosphere. So, which means that if you would just unplug your phone when you are not charging it, I mean, when it's fully charged, instead of just leaving the charger there, because the fact that your phone is full does not mean that because it is full, it will not demand more power when you keep the charger plugged in. So, just removing the charger, turning off the bulb when you are not using it, can do a whole lot of to the electricity grid and also climate change. So, very tiny things, but they have greater impact as they build on. So one of the challenges is cost. The energy transition is an expensive business. No, thanks to science and technological advancement, we have seen that, take for example now, solar panels are reducing, their costs have reduced drastically. In fact, almost cheap in some part of the world. But wait, it is not as simple as that. Why? Because the fact that the cost of solar panels have reduced drastically does not mean that's totally the same for everybody in the world. Take, for example, in Nigeria, it's not true. It's not true. You probably will need up to at the least 500,000 going into 1 million for you to install a solar home system into your house right now, personally, without any form of government support. Now, how many Nigerians can take that money and do it all at once? You have to buy batteries. Batteries. In fact, if you buy at least 2 batteries, I think it's about a battery now is about 300 to 400,000. A good battery. So it means that it's an expensive business. I mean, I'm just looking at it in a granular level, not to mention of building a mini grid for an entire community or an entire village. So, the upfront cost, the cost of implementing renewable energy project and sustainable energy projects are quite high, right? And then you now need some of additional investment in terms of storage usually in terms of batteries, yeah. So you need a lot of money. Now, so cost has been a challenge, and developing economies, which are really the ones that need a lot of support in transition into sustainable energy, do not have, as it were, the proper financing scheme in themselves to be able to finance the transition on their own. Another thing is policy. All over the world, it's not just even Africa alone, not just Nigeria alone. You have some countries, they have policies made, but because the implementation is a challenge, because to implement policies, you also need money. I mean, I know most people don't think of policies like that. People just think, yeah, let's just make the policy and then people will fall in line. That's not true. That's not true. Sometimes you make policy and you need to go and train people to understand how to live in the policy. That training will require money. Sometimes your policy will mean that you have to put infrastructures in place, clean energy infrastructures in place for people to use, right? Sometimes your policy will mean that you would have to subsidize things for people. Imagine, so take for example, we want to um, make a policy that people should use more electric vehicles in Nigeria. And we say, as a result of this, we would remove 30% import duty on electric vehicles. The government is going to remove 30%. But do you know that 30% means that a 30% reduction in government revenue? So the government will not have as much money as they want, which they would have gotten, right? So those things it's not as easy as sometimes it may sound. There is a lot of work that goes into even putting forward the right policies. So it's important that, when we are thinking about the energy transition, and I'm going to say this, all of the things I have said here are places that every one of us here can choose to build a domain. You can just choose to build a domain in financing, which is the cost part. You can choose to build a domain in the energy, because challenges are opportunities. You have to understand that. Challenges are opportunities. It means that there are challenges in this space, and if you can give yourself the right education such that you are able to contribute to being part of the solution, you have carved a niche for yourself. Most of the work I do, people know. If you even go to my LinkedIn, you'll probably see policy, infrastructure, and I do some sort of training. So it's important that we see things from that end. I don't know. I just feel like I need to talk to us, as young persons, not just that we are just having conversations and I have beautiful slides, but I want you to see what you can actually take away from this session, something tangible, how you can begin to think about these things and say, okay, oh, I want to build a solution in this regard. So some policies are inconsistent, and a good example of that is Nigeria. You have seen it severally, that the government will come in and say, this is my 7-point agenda. And after 4 years, another government comes in and saying, we have a 10-point agenda. And it's totally different from what the past government was trying to achieve. So that inconsistency affects the energy transition in itself. Because at least one of the things I know is that every government that comes into power in the state and national level in Nigeria always have as major energy project that they want to achieve. So you have to think about that. And how do I work around this? How do we cooperate with policymakers? How do we make lawmakers? How do we engage them such that our policies are not just consistent, they are also implemented? Because implementation is also another issue, right? And where the policies are not consistent, it scares away investors. I mean, if we all know that where there is war, people don't want to invest there. It's the same way where the policies are not consistent, because someone can come to you and say, we are for renewables. and we pump our money, pump billions of dollars into it. And after 4 years, another person says, do away with renewables. So it means that all the money we have pumped into, excuse me, this is our logo. I'm the founder of Energy. So I try to present myself as a bona fide member of Energy. Most times they don't let me do most of the work, but I still have to oversee a lot of managerial activities. So back to our topic, energy and climate change, understanding the challenges and paving the way forward. Generally, so I won't be fixated on my slide, just be some sort of guidance. So energy and climate change have very intertwined role. Like the person that did the introduction said, the way energy, the world is, it has always affected the energy transition. In fact, the development of the world has always been hinged on the consumption of energy, such that today people can actually say that the way the amount of development in a country is dependent on the energy consumption. So if you want to know if an energy is developing, check how much of energy they are consuming. And just look around. Look at Nigeria. How much electricity do we consume per person? I think it's about 2 to 3 kilowatts hour per person. That's very low, compared to some nations that consume as much as 300 kilowatt hour per person. Yeah. So it just shows you that given that our energy consumption is low, therefore it is expected that our development is low, because for everything you do, you need energy. So there is a huge connection between energy and climate change. Why? Because over the years, I'm going to try to take you through how energy has evolved in what we now even call the energy transition. So in the first engagement of man with energy, we basically just, used coal. That was, coal was the major source of commercial energy that the world used. And coal is a very dirty form of fuel, and some countries still use coal till today. It's a dirty form of fuel, so when you burn coal, you have a very huge amounts of carbon dioxide, even carbon monoxide, and other particulate matter that are generated and they are emitted into the atmosphere. So coal is very dirty, especially the lignite coal, which is the one that was mostly used and still very much in use till today. Then we now said, oh, let's move away from coal. Then we started looking at, oh, can we use petroleum? Then we said, oh, petroleum is cool, but then petroleum itself also releases emissions. Now, climate change is generally, the aggregate change in weather patterns over a period of time. Now, the reason that climate change is a big deal is because of the greenhouse emissions, which is, carbon, NOx, is nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, and other particulate matter that are emitted from the burning of this fuel. When they are released into the atmosphere, they therefore form like a cloud. And this cloud, what it now does is that it forms what we call, so the reason they even call them greenhouse emission is that in agriculture, a greenhouse is like a separated or a segregated compartment where you have differing conditions from the general world in that compartment. But the way the greenhouse gas is now work now is in the form of when these gases are released into the atmosphere, they now form a form of cloud, not allowing it to escape into the atmosphere and not allowing sunlight, the necessary amount of sunlight and other things that should come into our own space to come into our space. So it's more like a barricade is being developed, like an invisible cloud all around us, barring it. So we have a lot of it being trapped in the earth because of these greenhouse gas emissions. So, and energy has always been a very important aspect of human development. So it means that when you think about climate change, you don't just think about climate change in terms of environment. Think about climate change also in terms of development. Because the way the world has grown, the way economies of the world have grown is by the consumption of energy. And that's why you will find out that when people say, they say, but most of the developed economies grew on dirty fuels. Why? Because you cannot grow your economy without the consumption of energy. So energy plays an important role in the world today, in even global politics. Imagine, people don't even talk about the way we talk about economic security. We even have something that is called energy security. It means that countries are striving to be energy secure. The degree to which an economy can be said to be secure is actually has some bit of dependence on the degree of its energy security. So it has a huge connection with energy. Energy is an important factor of our world today. It impacts climate change. There is constantly emissions, being emitted. I mean, having to move goods from one place to another. You need to use transport. Sometimes these transport are not electric. Mostly they are, using diesel or they are using petrol. Diesel engines release emissions, carbon monoxide. Diesel engines release carbon dioxide. Petrol engines release carbon dioxide. So it shows that there's a lot of emissions that is being released. In fact, one of the greatest cause of cancer, which are these particulate matter, actually transport are seen to be a major, cause of cancer. Releasing of emissions, right? So it's important that we begin to look at it not just from a lens of environment when we think about climate change. We need to look at it from a lens of development. I think I just needed to mention that. So, but today now we are now saying that sustainable energy and renewable energy are coming into place. By the way, sustainable does not always mean renewable. Not renewable always means sustainable. So renewable is that you cannot exhaust that energy source within its lifetime. So what do I mean? You can't exhaust the sun. The sun is renewable. You can't possibly exhaust wind. Wind is renewable, right? You can't exhaust water. Why? Because the earth is constantly, there's something we call water cycle. So water is constantly being produced as it's being used. So you can exhaust water, right? But when you think about nuclear power, nuclear is not renewable, but it is sustainable. It's clean, but it's not renewable. Yeah, when you use maybe a radioisotope or yes, a radioisotope, and you use it maybe for a nuclear power plant, you have used it, right? You have used it. It produces, a small amount of a radioisotope can generate a huge amount of energy, but at the end of the day, you have used it, right? So it's different. However, I think it can be said that all renewable energy are sustainable, but not all sustainable energy are renewable. So I had to mention that. So, you know, apologies. So, the current state of energy, we see that energy has been contributing. These are some of the things I've spoken about has contributed to global warming. I think I've explained global warming. At the end of this conversation, if anyone does not understand any of this, please feel free to reach out to me. But has contributed to global warming, and we see it every day in our environment. Carbon dioxide is being released. One of also the greatest causes of global warming is actually methane. Um, in fact, right? In fact, methane's power, to trap it in the earth, like I've explained that concept to you. Methane's power to trap it in the earth is actually 6 times greater than that of carbon dioxide. But the reason carbon dioxide is a huge problem is that so carbon dioxide can spend years, lots of, in fact, decades in the atmosphere without going anywhere. Generally, for methane, after 12 years, they are done. They begin to lose their potency to disintegrate, right? And therefore, they go away, something like that. Let's just take it. So energy use, particularly like fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, they release greenhouse gases. Uh, and this, causes global warming. Also, extreme weather events like flooding. One of the things that we have also seen in recent times is, the permafrost currently now being defrosting. So permafrost are like large ice water bodies, that are now being uh, defrosted, and then they are falling back into water. So the ice is defrosting and becoming water. And now what that means is that when you now have too much water, the water now leads to flooding, right? I don't know if you understand that. So it now leads to flooding. Sometimes you also have extreme weather conditions like drought. There is just drought in some regions. There is no water. Why? Because of the carbon emissions and greenhouse gases that are released. Now, these greenhouse gases trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, leading to greenhouse effect and global warming. I think I've explained that. Then you have disruption of ecosystems. Disruption of ecosystems in like water bodies in water below the seabed. They are now being eroded because of harsh weather conditions, even in the water. So it means that which leads to ocean acidification and all of that. So it means that there is a huge impact of energy on our environment. Energy affects our environment in a huge way. It affects the water we drink, it affects the air we breathe in. In fact, did you know that Nigeria happens to be one of the countries with the worst air quality in the world? Energy affects our air, it affects the water we drink, it affects even the things that we're able to do free. It affects our economy. So it's an important factor in climate change development. Now, there are challenges that the world is now currently facing in transitioning to sustainable energy. Because when we begin to look at some of these challenges, we now see that sustainable energy is the way forward. Sustainable energy and renewable energy, they do not release these emissions. They are helping us to avoid these emissions. I think that's one of the best way to put it. They are helping us to avoid these emissions because we can't do without energy, right? But these sources are helping us to produce energy without releasing the amount of greenhouse gases that we would have released if we were to be using conventional energy fuels, maybe like gas, or maybe say petrol, or maybe say coal. So it now means that they are the solutions. This is the way that we should go. I'm a strong advocate for renewable energy. However, there is a planning to it. And I think I'll mention some of the things to look out for in planning to it under these challenges. So it's important that we as young people begin to look out for. In fact, I'm going to share a story. Let's take a step back from the slides. I'm going to share a story with you. An experience that I had during my master's. One of my mates who was doing energy economics, she asked me, she said, why am I so concerned about climate change? How does climate change affect me? That it's a white man's thing. That's not true. And I'm going to tell you something. So this year was 2020 when I was doing my master's in UI. And she asked me that question that year. I remember that in 2020, we did not have the first rain of the year until September 3rd. You can imagine how hot that year was. I think that year we had the hottest September in the entire decade up till that point. So she said, how is it affecting me? And I said, wait. I said, do you know that it has not rained? Because at that point when we were having that conversation, it had not rained this year. She said, yes. I said, how do you think farmers have been able to produce food? She said she doesn't know. I said, does it occur to you that what they have been doing to water their farms would have been irrigation? She said, yes. I said, does that imply to you that that would have led to more cost on their part? She said, yes. I said, does it now occur to you that it means that we would have to pay more for food? She said, yes. So you see, as simple as not having rainfall is, it actually affects us. As simple as drought, as simple as it may sound, it affects you. It affects every one of us. So when we think about energy affecting every one of us, when we think about the release of gases affecting every one of us, these are the interconnected ways that it affects every one of us. So for us to avoid these emissions that lead to, more grievous imbalances in our environment, in gas emissions in the atmosphere, one cogent way that we can adopt is the use of sustainable energy. So we need to transition. Now, the reason I am very keen on the word transition, it is a transition. It is not, it is not a disappearing and appearing. You don't just leave from one place and then appear at the other place. You have to gradually transit. You know, so it means that all the money we have pumped into renewables has gone to a waste. So those are things that we all need to think about. Also, the problem of infrastructure. Infrastructure costs money. Sometimes it is not even just a money problem. It is also a people problem. I'm going to give you an example. So there are times that there is something called the right of way. Right of way is, let's say you are taking a power line, a high voltage tension cable or power line, Nigeria, and you are taking it across a particular place. Sometimes you know that if I own a farmland, I have the right to say that the government should not pass a power line over my land. So these are challenges, but we really do not have issues like that because generally the federal government owns every land in Nigeria and then lists it out. But people still have some form of right. You know, there are some underground cables that you are passing across, and you get to someone's farm, and the person says, "No, you are not. You are not digging up my farmland because underground cables means that you have to dig." You know, those are challenges. Sometimes it could be a people problem, and sometimes it's just a regulation problem, right? Like I mentioned, there also finance, also logistics. I think I've explained logistics, which was when I said the people problem, regulatory challenges. We have the right regulations to have the sustainable energy infrastructure all around us, or is it just the ones that fit into the business of the day? And then technology. As the world is advancing in technology, are we making sure that we're using the best technology? And then energy access. Those are challenges. Workforce transition. Africa needs a lot of training. A lot of training. I'm going to be starting a couple of training some week. I hope that some of you are able to subscribe to that training. Africa needs a lot of training because people don't even understand the standards that are required of them. And sometimes it's not even just skill. Sometimes it's just your ability to combine things together. I'm going to tell you something. One of the things that have helped my career to get to this point is proactiveness and the ability to be able to combine things that are usually not convenient to do them all together. You see, that versatility is a key thing in the energy transition. So there is a lot of training that needs to be done. All right. So opportunities in renewable energy. One of the opportunities that lots of jobs are currently being created. I also understand that lots of jobs are being lost. Which dates back to this workforce transition. Because say for example, people that are already experienced in the oil and gas sector, and you're asking them to come and work on solar panels, they probably don't know anything about solar panels, right? Or they need to be trained. So while jobs will be lost in the oil and gas sector, jobs are being created in the sustainable energy space, and lots of jobs. Some of these jobs are not just in policy. And I want to say something about job creation. It's not just policy. I understand that everybody says, "Oh, I want to be a researcher in the clean energy space. I want to be a policy analyst." Every one of us cannot work there. We need people that will think about battery production and produce batteries. So when you start producing battery, let's say myself and maybe Christiana now, we say we want to come together to start a company that produces battery, and we scale it up, and one day we have 10,000 workers. It means that by just two people coming together to do an initiative, we have created 10,000 jobs for people in the clean energy space. And that's just picking on just one aspect of the clean energy, just battery production. Right? A lot of jobs can be created. Now, energy independence, we also know that, I think I explained when I was mentioning about energy security. Time is running fast. When I was mentioning about energy security, we saw that the way energy independence works is that given that I'm using renewable energy, I can produce my own energy in my country. I don't have to rely on another country, maybe supply me gas or petroleum. So I have my solar panels, I have my wind turbines, I have my nuclear plants, and therefore I can produce as much energy as I want to. I don't have to depend on anyone, which means that my economy does not have to depend on anybody. Because if, for example, you need energy to produce, and let me give you a small example. People, our cold rooms, people that sell, maybe stock fish or meat, they have to preserve them through intense temperature reduction. So imagine that a neighboring city that's producing you electricity says that they are fighting with you, therefore they will not give you electricity for maybe 1 month. You know the amount of money that will be lost, the kind of smell that will be coming out from that place, because things that generally need electricity to preserve them will get rotten. That's just an example, one example. Let's look at our farming. Take for example that the same situation occurs and a neighboring city says that they are not producing electricity. Now I'm saying city in terms of, I want you to look at city in terms of country to country now. And if neighboring city says that they are not producing electricity for another city, and therefore the city, they cannot preserve their farm produce. So I'm back in Nigeria. Apologies, light is turned off. So we now begin to see that the people are depending on others, and then when they say they are no longer producing electricity for them, maybe tomatoes got rotten, their fruits, their guava, their almond fruit, any of all of those things, they become spoiled. So it also has environmental benefits, which I think I've spoke to earlier on, in terms of emissions avoidance. You can avoid emissions. You can also reduce the rate we are releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Technological innovation, there are a lot of development that has come forth through just thinking about the sustainable energy space. And it empowers community. Communities that did not used to have electricity can now have electricity through the use of things like mini grids. Communities that maybe are agrarian communities, they can produce and then so and sell more. Why? Because of maybe they now have cold rooms through the use of mini grid, and then productive use of energy. They have electricity to power their irrigation systems, and there is a lot of market growth. Generally, renewable energy system, the renewable energy market is growing rapidly. Yeah. So, case studies for successful energy transitions. A lot of countries have done it, and which means that makes it possible. It is possible for any country in the world to do it. Take, for example, in Denmark. Denmark has taken up a lot of its wind power and then be used through partnerships and also policies that it has established and made itself a global renewable energy hub. Right? The country I think, is 98% dependent on clean energy. Also, Costa Rica. Costa Rica also is, getting near to 100% renewable electricity, right? And these countries are using a lot of things to aid their movement towards sustainable energy. So it's possible, by combining policies, combining infrastructure, also thinking about how they can shift from where they are to where they want to. So one of the things that we must think about as young people is, how can I support the world? How can I support my country? How can I support my family to move from where we are to where we want to be in terms of our energy use and our carbon footprint? So the role of research and innovation. Research actually plays a key role in the advancement of sustainable energy and clean energy. They are important in driving the transition. You see people give huge amount for maybe PhDs to do research, for master's people to do research. That shows you that it's plays an important role, because you cannot innovate without doing your proper research. And which brings me back to a point. In Nigeria, one of the things I want us to stop doing is throwing away our research pieces. We need to have master's, PhD students funded, and their ideas, the result of their research, being incorporated into industry in terms of innovation. So there are promising several areas that any one of us might want to look into. Energy storage technologies. There are several technologies, not just batteries. There is the flywheel, right? There are several technologies that are used for energy storage. In fact, in terms of hydrogen, salt caverns are currently being used for storing nitrogen. So there are several things, and what makes this interesting is that there are still several challenges that needs to be solved in each of these. Several advancements that still can be made. So carbon capture and utilization is there. Carbon capture just simply refers to capturing carbon from the atmosphere and then using it, because you use carbon in plastic production, you use it in other industrial needs. So you can capture it and use it, or capture it and store it. There are also advanced materials for solar panels, and a lot has been done in terms of the smart grid solutions also. So it is important that we look at the energy and climate change from an holistic manner and see that there is a systemic way for us to mitigate climate change. So there is, the holistic climate change mitigation and then integrated solutions landscape. So the holistic just refers to, addressing climate change in a way that requires more than just the technology. So you have to look at it, not just from, like I mentioned earlier, you can't just look at it from an environmental perspective. The same way you can't look at it from terms of a technological challenge. You have to consider that it has social impact, it has economic impact, it has environmental impact. So we must look at climate change. And then when you begin to think about climate change, as someone in the energy sector, think about how is my energy consumption contributing to climate change? What do I need to change? Because it's not just going to impact me, it's going to impact the whole world. Like the speaker earlier said, it has a transboundary effect. So when we look at it like this, we see the interconnection between several sectors and how that we can collaborate with stakeholders from other places. How you can collaborate with someone in the agricultural sector. You cannot just say I'm a physicist, so me, I just do what focus on physics. No, you have to be able to think about how we can think about climate change and how you can create solutions partnering with people, even in the fashion industry. So yeah, it's important that we look at it also. Also the integrated solution landscapes, looks at how we can combine several technologies, across several sectors. Just don't look at it in the energy sector. You look at it in transport. In transport, we have electric mobility. In agriculture, I've spoken about, productive use of energy in terms of irrigation and also storage. In industry, we have the use of AI and also other things in industry that can help us to reduce our carbon intensity and therefore help us mitigate climate change and reduce our energy consumption. Listen to me. If you can reduce your energy consumption, you will definitely be reducing your carbon intensity. But reducing it does not mean you can't solve it all by reducing it, because you still need to use energy. So ultimately, you would have to reduce and also transition sustainable sources of energy. So policy also has a huge role in shaping the energy transition, which I think I mentioned earlier. In how this energy transition is, there are policy frameworks that guides businesses, ensures that businesses are moving towards renewable energy. Take for example, in places in some countries in Europe, the government has made it such that a and if a company decides to produce renewable energy, that therefore that company pay lesser because they are using renewable energy. They are even producing renewable energy. Some of the policies have encouraged that households produce energy from solar panels, and they feed the excess of this solar energy into the grid. Those are policies. Government makes a lot of policies, but we as young persons, because one of the things that these conversations we're having is important is because someday, in the next 10, 15 years, one of you will probably be the minister for power. What policies are you going to be putting in? You'll probably be leading, strong organizations across the world. What policies are you going to be putting in place? We need to think about policies that ensure and promote energy efficiency, and also the deployment of clean energies in terms of renewable energy. So the way forward, what do we need to do? We need to integrate climate action. Integrate climate action in terms of in terms of trainings, in terms of aligning economic incentives with our climate goals. And one of the ways we can do that is carbon pricing. Carbon pricing just means that if you put policies in place and say that beyond this limit, you cannot emit carbon emissions. So what do I mean? Take, for example, the government says that for every carbon intensive organization in Nigeria, you cannot emit more than 3,000, okay, let me say 400,000 grams of CO2 per year. The moment you go before that, for every gram of CO2 that you emit, you would have to pay maybe 10,000 naira or 20,000 naira. That's already an incentive in itself, because it will mean that these organizations will be careful, will be careful about emitting carbon. And since they know that they need huge amount of energy, what would they do? They would therefore employ renewable energy, to support their activities. So we need to integrate climate action into our sectors. Another thing is to identify and addressing gaps in terms of skills, gaps in terms of policies, gaps in terms of infrastructure. We need to look into those gaps and address them. And then for us to achieve, for us to identify and address these gaps, one of the things we need to put into place is concrete strategies. We can't just do things any way we want them to be done or any way we think they should be done. We need to develop a comprehensive climate action that covers mitigation, adaptation, and also resilience, and also empower our local communities by training them, sensitizing them, informing them about climate change, its impact, and the role of their energy consumption in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So in conclusion, I think I'm right on time. In conclusion, one of the things that we need to look into is that there is urgency and determination that needs to address our current energy and climate challenges. And one of the ways that we would meet our climate target as a country, as a continent, and as a global village, I mean the world, is that one person cannot just be concerned. All of us needs to come together. And it's not just one sector. There is climate change in the fashion industry. I've mentioned that. There's climate change in the automobile industry. I've mentioned that. There is climate change in our agricultural sector. So we need to bring together people in government. We need to bring businesses, communities, individuals to work together, which means that all of these people need to be trained also. And then we need to commit ourselves to implementing the action and plans that we have designed for ourselves. Hearsay, mere say, will not do it. Like I said, hearsay, mere say will not do it. People need to know what is the real deal, and they need to commit to doing what is the real deal and do the real deals themselves. And the impacts will not just be on ourselves, but for future generations to come. So thank you, everyone. I believe that these are some of the things I just wanted to share. But if there are questions, I'm happy to take questions. I really love questions because they allow me to just be free and not fixated on the slides that I've prepared. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for that enlightening session. In fact, I was just writing and, it was so relatable, and we can see how, even as individuals, we can see have a part to play in this transition, in making sure that the earth is actually a safer place. So right now we'll be taking questions as quickly as possible. Okay, I can see hands being raised. Chisom, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, all right, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Chisom Okoli. I'm a pharmacy student of UI, and I was particularly prompted to attend this session because very recently we taught about green chemistry, which is basically synthesizing drugs now using safer methods, using methods that are renewable, using methods that are not as harmful to the environment. So I found it very, very enlightening to hear that like this idea of climate change and using energy the right way can be applied to like every aspect of life. I especially enjoy the fact that I mentioned that even just me charging my phone and removing the plug once it's full is something I can do. Thank you so much once again, sir. I wanted to ask, you said something at the beginning, and you said that um, I think you said all renewable energy is sustainable, but not all sustainable energy is renewable. So I wanted to ask, because I think previously I thought that renewable energy was the same as sustainable energy. So I wanted to ask the difference between both, what you meant by that statement, and also other practical ways. I know the presentation was full of practical ways, but apart from like what can I do as an undergraduate? You know, I'm not fully into research. I'm still an undergraduate. I'm not in my final year, so I've not done a project. I'm not in charge of policies. So what can I do? I know I can speak to people about it, but are there other things I can do? So those are my questions. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Jason. Great question. Great question. So when I said all renewable energy are sustainable, but not all sustainable energy are renewable. So first, I define what a renewable energy is. Renewable energy is the energy that you cannot exhaust within its lifetime. So take for example the sun. The sun is renewable. You cannot exhaust the sun. You can't exhaust the wind. You can't exhaust water. I explained that about water. The case of water comes in terms of the water cycle. Water is constantly being produced in a cycle, right? When you think about things like what's it called now, nuclear, then there is a challenge because nuclear is clean, but it's not renewable. When you use an atom of maybe nuclear if you use a nuclear atom to produce maybe energy through fission or fusion, then you see that you have used it, you have simply used it, you are not reproducing it, right? It has reduced, but it has produced a large amount of energy for you. So that's what I really meant by not. And there are several other explanations of that online, but that's the concept. Not all renewable energy not all sustainable energy are renewable, but all renewable energy are sustainable. Why? Because you can use water, sun, solar, and even wind for a very long time, producing massive amount of energy years over years. Sustainable just means that you can use it for a long time. I mean, from the word sustenance, it meets your needs over and over and over again without decreasing. All right. So I don't know if I answered your question. I think you asked the second question.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, you answered the first one. The second one on like other practical steps for someone that is not directly involved in policies yet.
Yeah. So one of the things you can do is make changes in your own life. It's as simple as this. Use energy efficient bulbs. Don't tell people about it. Sorry, tell people about it. Use energy efficient bulbs. Don't charge your phone. In fact, there are few things that you could do when you understand a bit more about the energy space, but don't charge your phone when your phone is full. Just remove the charger. Don't plug your iron and go and be talking to someone else. These are very simple things. Um don't leave your room and leave your fan spinning. Very simple things. Yeah. And use plastic bottles once. Don't Say, for example, you buy a bottle of water. I understand that there is a challenge in Nigeria generally, so I'm not going to be very hard on this. But if you ever find yourself in Europe or anywhere in the developed economy, when you buy a plastic, oftentimes you can return the plastics and cash back money. So those are things that you can take. And if you don't want to cash back money, once you buy this, the next time you want to drink water, if you have water in your house, put water there. I know that there is a Nigerian challenge. People thinking that when you use plastic bottle once, if you don't put water into it, it's because you are poor. That's why you are using the plastic bottle. You don't have money to buy bottled water again. Therefore, you are now putting water from your house. It's a stupid thing. who told you that the bottle from, well, maybe you know, but who told you that water from that you're buying in those bottles are better than the ones in your house? If you have a good maybe borehole system in your house and the water is good, why shouldn't I drink the water? Right? So buy bottles that you can use for a long time. Don't buy plastic bottles all the time. And also, even when you buy them, dispose them properly. Dispose them properly. Don't just, yeah, you know that is a thing that is rampant in Nigeria. I see people drink water. See, when I was still living in Nigeria, if you see me carrying a backpack, one of the things you can almost always be sure that you will find in the back pocket of my bag is that you find pure water nylon or you find biscuit nylon, if I've eaten one, or sweet nylon. I never throw things on the road. I'm a Nigerian, doesn't matter. A lot of people might be doing it. I never do it. I keep my nylons, dispose them properly, throw them where they should be thrown. Yeah, that's some of the things you can do.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, so we're taking Temilola question now. Thank you so much, sir, for that. Temilola, you can unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you very much for the session, Mr. Ayodeji. Thank you so much, sir. So, recently I saw an open call challenge for climate change, and then I've been having this will in me to do some climate change advocacy, like understand what goes on and everything. And then with the things that have been happening around, the heat waves and everything, I've been thinking, oh, this is just the right time to get people to listen. But when I saw the open call, I was not particularly sure how I wanted to contribute, and I felt very ill prepared and let me say unprepared and inexperienced to actually go into something like that. Do you think starting with a challenge that comes with project and requires a lot of expertise is the right way to go about it, or do I need to take some time to do some learning, to have a few years of experience before launching into that space? And the other thing is that I really don't know how to actually go. Is it just by reading stuff about climate change and how it affects me and how I can take responsibility, or by attending webinars such as this, or by just doing some advocacy on my social media? I don't particularly know what are the, well, I won't call them right steps, but what are the like the basic steps for somebody that is just beginning and that wants to like get into this space and make a change? Thank you very much.
All right, yeah. So it's not difficult. I'll start from your second question. It's not difficult. I think what you can do is, for me, the way I did it was I took a lot of courses on Coursera. Then I also did a lot of research. I attended webinars. I did everything. I just wanted to learn. I learned, and then I also volunteered with an organization that was working in this space. So you have to combine your learning with practicality. So as you're working on a project, also be learning, take courses, attend webinars, speak where you can speak, encourage people where you can encourage people, also listen where you should listen. So that's what I would say. About your first question regarding the call you saw, I'm not sure what are the details of the call, but if you feel like you want to learn, tell the organizers you want to learn. One of the things I would tell you is that in applying for things, you are just apply. The worst is that you will be told a no, but without applying, it is still a no. I mean, you will not get into the program. You shouldn't apply. And so apply, share your idea. You never can tell, maybe a good learning call for you, but most likely that call will be an opportunity for you to learn. You at least learn something from that experience. Go for it.
Thank you, sir. Temilola, was he able to answer your question?
Yes, I'm very satisfied. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm glad. Thank you, sir. All right, very quickly, Khadija, you can unmute your mic. Oh, wow, more questions are coming. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Khadija. I'm a final year law student at Bowen University. And thank you very much, sir, for the insightful section. And I'm particularly excited that you spoke a lot about policy, because policy does a lot to shape climate change actions and what we do to ensure that we live in a sustainable environment. So I've done a sizable research on climate change and sustainability, and I discovered
Sorry, is it me? I can't hear again.
Hello, candidate. No, it's not just you. Hello, we can't hear you anymore.
I guess it's more a network.
Our network. Okay, so candidate, would still love to take your question. Probably when maybe you can reconnect. Suleiman, you can ask your question.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so thank you very much for this section. So I'm actually a chemical engineering graduate from Federal University of Technology, Mina. So my undergraduate project was on synthesis of heterogeneous catalysts for biodiesel production. So that is looking at energy, secured energy. So before now, I used to look at energy sustainability in terms of not only the availability of the raw material, but I also look at it in terms of technology that is required for us to get this energy done. So like looking at biodiesel now. So I used to look at it as if we have raw material, same thing with solar energy, wind energy, but looking at technology for us to get this done. So I used to define this I've attended from the journals I've read. I used to look at sustainability of energy, not only in terms of the raw material, but also technology for us to get this thing done, for this energy to be sustainable. So like, but today I got more insight to this. So my question is this. So like looking at energy transition and energy mixing, so which one is the best for us to be talking about in industry? So should we be talking about energy transition from fossil fuel, so all this clean energy, or we should mix this energy together, the fossil fuel and the wind energy and coal? So thank you very much. That's my question.
Okay, you have asked a very interesting question. It may sound simple, but it's not. Frankly, you have to consider the case of the country you're talking about. So if you're looking at a country like Nigeria, we don't have a lot of wind, so wind energy might not be the best for us. We have a lot of solar, but does the company have the capacity to generate enough energy using solar panels that will be able to carry it, that will be able to supply it energy demand? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh yeah, all right. So that will be able to supply its energy demand. I'll be able to supply its energy demand per day. So those are considerations that every country and even every community and business needs to consider. So if you ask me in Nigeria, what should we do? I would say we need to still use our gas, but we also need to begin to make advancement towards clean energy. Because currently, like I told you, there are lots of challenges in terms of finance, in terms of infrastructure, which needs to be gradually put into place. You can't put all of those things into place one day. So it's important that we also understand that there is still a need for gas. In fact, research has shown, this research is confirmed by the International Energy Agency, that fossil fuel will still be in African energy mix. We play a very strong role in African energy mix up until 2030. So it means that there is a lot that we need to put into place. So but to answer your question generally, every country, every organization, every community, we need to consider its needs on a case-by-case study analysis, which is where consultants come in. I do that for organizations, but the case is not the same for everybody. We can't assume this is the best for everybody. We need to consider everyone on a case-by-case basis. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, candidate, I think you're back on the call. Let's take your question.
Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption. And my question is based on the policies that are already in place, the laws that are already in place, that there are laws in place, although these laws are lacking, but the provisions there that are still good, they are not being adhered to. So what ways can you suggest that these laws, how can the government like implement these laws and make sure that people are following these laws? And my other question is related to financing climate change actions, because I'm sure that I know that during COP, there's always like an agreement for developed nations to donate funds to help with third world countries like African countries. And most times these developed countries, they don't contribute this money. So is this a policy problem or they just don't see a need for it?
Okay.
That's my
All
question.
right. Thank you so much, Khadija. So you see, I'll start from your last question. You see, um, 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 most of the agreements at COP are not binding, right? There is no you must do it. It is a good thing to be done. So the nations come together and say, okay, we'll do it. But there is no repercussion for not doing it. So nothing's going to happen. It's not like you're not going to be a nation. Or you are going to be cast out from COP because you don't do it. No, right? So it is not a policy problem. At the end of the day, it's a political will problem, which also speaks to your first question. Implementing policies, it's a political will problem, especially in a place like Nigeria. Because before you make policies, we need to actually make sure that the policies are designed in a way that it's doable and put like that. And the policies can be, they can be complied with, right? After that, some of these policies, they are not well executed. And forgive me, this might come as a shocker, but one of the policies, an example is, the removal of fuel subsidy in Nigeria. It's a good policy, but it was not well executed, right? There are several things that go into policy implementation, policy development, policy engagement in itself. There is a lot of processes and time that should go into that, and a lot of resources. But when it's not properly done, or it's done haphazardly, then we see that we don't come out with the right results. So it's a lot of challenge in that sense.
I candidate.
Thank you so
Has
much,
your
sir. You
question
answered
been
my
answered?
question. Yes.
All right, I'm glad. And finally, Matthew, you can unmute to ask your question.
Good evening, Mr. Ayodeji. Thank you for the presentation. I really learned a lot from it. I am an educator and I want to ask two questions. First one is that we're talking about plastic bottles like that if we want to recycle it or if we want to use it again, we should look for good one. Now, how can we differentiate good bottles and the bad one from the one that we can see around us? And then another thing I want to ask is that in order to participate in energy and climate, are there bodies or can you give us some bodies where we can join voluntarily to learn more about this energy and climate? Because of a truth, when we hear some of these things you have said, we will need to know some appropriate bodies to join so that we can learn more while we do our research. So that's my question. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matthew. For your last question, yeah, join ERA, join the organization that brought me here. I think that's a good place. But if you're talking about maybe established organizations globally that you can follow online, there are lots of them. You can follow the United Nations Environment Program. They do a lot on that front. There is a lot of bodies you can follow. You can follow Green Cape. A lot of bodies. A lot of bodies. I mean, if you just search online, climate change organizations in the world, find a lot of them that you can follow and read some of their stuffs. So there is a lot. But join ERA. I mean, this is the grassroots organization, and one of the things that people don't know about grassroots organization is that you are doing good work there. There is a lot for you to do here than for you doing in an organization that's already established, right? Here you will even easily find recognition for your work. So join ERA. That's what I would say. About the plastic, I'm not sure you heard me perfectly, but what I said was in developed economies, when you have the plastic bottles, you can return them and cash back money. They are recycled. But in the case of our environment, if you buy a plastic bottle, try not to use it once. But if you use it once, also dispose it properly. I think that was my line of thought when I mentioned that. But if you use it once, or maybe you don't have an option, dispose it properly, right? Um, Other thing is that don't discriminate when you see. Yeah, don't dispose your plastic bottles on the road. Don't just throw it anywhere. So yeah, that's it. But for developed economies, if not most, I think for a country like Germany, every bottle you buy can be recycled. Almost every bottle you buy, not all, but almost every bottle you buy can be recycled.
Thank you so much, sir. Matthew.
Yes.
All right, Matthew,
Yeah.
what's your question?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah, yes, answered my question. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the session, for the questions. I mean, we really appreciate even sharing from your experience and in a very relatable way. I mean, that was awesome. And we appreciate all that was discussed today. We see the need, right? And rather than all just going back home, so just like forget about all that we have had, I feel we can see how each of us can actually take a step in actually seeing this safe planet that we're talking about, this sustainable energy transition that we are talking about. So thank you, Ayodeji, for sharing your expertise. We really appreciate it. And let us carry this momentum, right, from this discussion, and let's just make meaningful actions wherever we are, in our personal spaces, in our communities, in our schools, right? And let's continue to grow ourselves, to keep ourselves, and to ensure that we are making impact. So ERA is around, right? I mean, it was asking that which community can you join? ERA is one. We are Energy Reboot Africa, and we are all about saying to it that people are informed about this climate change and what they can do, to change and to make the world a safer place. Yes, our focus is on a particular source of energy, which is nuclear, although there are many conceptions about that form of energy, but we are also here at ERA to make you understand what exactly and how exactly this form of energy can help, as well as other energies. So we welcome you to join ERA, and I'm grateful for everyone that was around today. Matthew, your hand is still raised up. I don't know if it's a mistake or probably you are here to put it down.
That was the mistake, ma'am.
All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. So if there are no other questions, we say I would say we are up to the end even of this webinar. And ERA still has so much to offer. You've seen a lot of this coming up in the nearest future. So please make sure you connect with ERA. And I don't know if we can also have a way to connect with Ayodeji Stephen, right? I mean, I'm very sure a lot of us might want to connect with him one way or the other. So I don't know, sir, if you can help us drop a way of connecting with you. so that as many of us that want to connect with you in the nearest future right now, we can have access to that. Thank you very much, sir. So,
Okay.
yeah, we've got yes. It works, I
I'm,
think.
I'm going to give me a minute. I'm going to drop my LinkedIn. And also
All right.
and also maybe my WhatsApp.
All right, sir.
LinkedIn.
So thank you for the participation. And the energy was so fun and interesting to watch. So let's keep that momentum and let's make impact in our spaces. So as soon as Ayodeji drops his LinkedIn, we can all connect with him, and we can also connect with Era, right? We also have a social media dropped the WhatsApp page, so you can join us and can continue to connect and learn more together and also work together to make a change. All right, so he has dropped it. As many of us that are interested in reaching out to him.
All right, so that's my name on LinkedIn and that's my WhatsApp number. Please kindly introduce yourself properly if you approach me on WhatsApp so that I would be able to engage with you properly.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
All right,
So
thank you,
thank you
everyone.
once again. Yes. Okay. All right, thank you once again, everyone, for your participation. We look forward to continuing this journey towards a sustainable tomorrow. So, bye, everybody. I don't know if you guys want to connect to me too, but I'm Christiana Adisa. That's my LinkedIn name. All right, good night, everybody.
All right, good night, everybody. See you some other time.
Thank you so much for
Yes.
the session.
You're welcome. Have a lovely week.